It's human nature. We're selfish.
The moment that coffin was opened, everything in Euphoria changed forever. Episode 7 didn't just give us another shocking twist. It completely destroyed the lives of almost every major character in the series. One betrayal led to another, one secret exposed another, and by the end of the episode, it felt like nobody was safe anymore. Nate's fate finally caught up to him in the most horrifying way possible. Rue made a decision that could get her killed. Cassie realized too late what actually mattered to her, and Maddie may have accidentally entered the darkest chapter of her entire life. But what makes this episode so interesting is that underneath all the chaos, the show is really talking about consequences. Every choice made this season finally exploded all at once, and now the finale only has one job left: decide who survives the fallout. Section 1 this episode opened in a very different way compared to the rest of the season, and honestly, that slower beginning made everything feel even heavier. Ollie's monologue instantly set the tone. The way he spoke about redemption, mistakes, and the people we lose while trying to become better versions of ourselves felt like a warning for every single character in the story, especially Rue. Throughout this season, Rue has believed that she was changing her life for the better. She thought she was finally becoming smarter, stronger, and more in control. But episode 7 showed us that sometimes people can convince themselves they are escaping danger while actually walking deeper into it. The biggest storyline of the episode was obviously Nate. From the beginning of the season, it felt like his life was collapsing piece by piece. He was trying to reinvent himself while still holding on to the same toxic habits that destroyed everything around him before. His relationships were broken, his family situation was worse than ever, and the deeper he got involved with dangerous people, the more obvious it became that things were not going to end well for him. What makes Nate's death so disturbing is not just the fact that he died, but how he died. The symbolism throughout that entire sequence was honestly one of the smartest parts of the episode. Nate was trapped underground inside a coffin with only a breathing pipe keeping him alive. That pipe represented hope. It represented time. It represented the tiny chance that he could still survive long enough for somebody to save him. But then the snake crawled into the exact thing that was keeping him alive. That's what makes the scene terrifying. The thing giving him survival also became the reason for his death. Euphoria has always used visual metaphors, and this was one of the darkest examples the show has ever done. There's also another layer to it. Earlier in the season, Rue constantly talked about signs from God and the idea that the universe was trying to tell her something. But Nate's death almost feels like the opposite. The snake entering the coffin can easily be viewed as a devil-like image. Temptation, punishment, and consequences all crashing together in one moment. Nate spent years hurting people, manipulating people, and destroying lives around him. Episode 7 basically showed that eventually all those actions finally came back for him. What made the scene even harder to watch was Cassie's reaction afterward. Because despite everything Nate did to her, despite all the pain and manipulation, she still loved him. That's the tragedy of Cassie's story this season. She spent so long chasing fame, validation, and attention online that she forgot what she actually wanted emotionally. When her social media career started collapsing, she panicked because she thought her entire future was disappearing. But once Nate's body was pulled out of the ground, none of that mattered anymore. The followers, the attention, the money, suddenly it all felt meaningless to her. And honestly, the show handled that realization really well. Cassie screaming over Nate's body was probably one of the most emotional moments of the season because for the first time in a long time, her emotions felt real instead of performative. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't chasing validation. She was simply broken. That scene finally forced her to confront the reality that all her choices had consequences too. At the same time, Maddie's storyline became much darker than I expected. Earlier in the season, Maddie still felt connected to the normal world compared to characters like Rue or Nate. But now she's fully trapped in something dangerous. Her decision to ask Alamo for help solved one problem while creating an even bigger one. That's the theme running throughout this episode. Nobody escapes consequences for free. Every solution creates another disaster. The scariest part is that Alamo now owns part of Maddie's future. The deal she made means she owes him a percentage of her earnings moving forward, and that instantly changes her entire life. She may not fully realize it yet, but she's officially connected to a world that people rarely escape from. And what's tragic is that she got dragged into it because she was trying to help people she cared about. The relationship between Maddie and Cassie was also written in a really uncomfortable but realistic way during this episode. On the surface, Maddie is helping Cassie rebuild her online popularity after the account disaster. But underneath that, their friendship feels completely broken now. Maddie no longer views Cassie emotionally. She views her almost like an asset, like something valuable that can generate money. That's why the dialogue about Cassie being a money tree mattered so much. It showed that their relationship has transformed into something transactional and toxic. And while all of this chaos was happening, Rue's storyline was quietly becoming the most dangerous part of the entire episode. Because unlike Nate, who is already spiraling publicly, Rue is making mistakes that almost nobody around her fully understands yet. She thinks she's in control of the game she's playing between Lori, Alamo, and the DEA. But episode 7 started proving that the walls are finally closing in around her. Rue's storyline in this episode honestly felt like watching somebody walk deeper into a nightmare while convincing themselves they still have control over it. That's what made her scenes so tense. She's no longer just struggling with addiction or emotional trauma. Now she's trapped between criminals, informants, lies, and survival. And the scary part is that every side she's dealing with has the power to destroy her life instantly if they decide she can't be trusted anymore. What made Ali's scenes so important in this episode was the contrast between the life Rue could have had and the life she's choosing instead. Ali offered her safety, stability, a place where she could finally stop running. His speech about redemption wasn't just about his own past. It was secretly directed at Rue. He was trying to show her that healing only works when you fully leave destruction behind. But Rue still believes she can balance both worlds at the same time. She thinks she can help the DEA, manipulate dangerous people, and somehow survive all of it without consequences. Episode 7 basically confirmed that she's wrong. The moment Rue made her biggest mistake was during her conversation with Lexi. And what's interesting is that the scene wasn't dramatic at first. It almost felt casual. Rue mentioned working with the DEA out of frustration, probably thinking Lexi would never repeat it or that it wasn't a huge deal. But Euphoria has always shown how small conversations can create massive disasters later. Lexi telling Maddie and Maddie casually mentioning it to Alamo may end up becoming the decision that destroys Rue completely. Because from Alamo's perspective, that changes everything. He already had trust issues with Rue. He already suspected she was hiding things. So, hearing even a small rumor about the DEA instantly puts her in danger. The episode never directly showed his reaction becoming explosive, but that's what made it scarier. Sometimes the quiet reactions are worse because it means someone is thinking carefully before they act. Then the episode became even darker once Rue returned to Lori's side. The tension in those scenes felt completely different compared to the emotional drama happening with Nate and Cassie. Lori's world feels cold, calculated. There's no emotion there, only survival and business. Wayne instantly distrusting Rue showed that her lies are finally catching up to her. Earlier in the season, Rue was able to move between different groups because people underestimated her. But now everyone is starting to realize she's connected to too many secrets. The situation with Faye was one of the most tragic parts of the episode because Faye genuinely seemed to trust Rue. In her mind, escaping together with the stolen money represented freedom. It represented a new beginning away from all the violence surrounding them. But when they opened the safe and found no money, everything changed instantly. And honestly, the reveal inside that safe may have been the creepiest moment of the entire season. The ID cards completely changed the meaning of Alamo's operation. Earlier in the story, everyone assumed the robbery involved cash or drugs. But episode 7 revealed something much more disturbing. Those IDs suggest that the girls connected to Alamo's clubs are part of something far darker happening behind the scenes. The episode never fully explains whether the girls were trafficked, killed, or disappeared another way, but that uncertainty actually makes it more horrifying. Sometimes what the audience imagines is worse than what the show could explicitly say. This reveal also changes Alamo as a character. Up until now, he felt dangerous mainly because of his power and influence. But now he feels genuinely terrifying because it suggests there's an entire hidden system operating around him. It makes Rue's situation even worse because she's no longer just dealing with criminals. She may be connected to people capable of making others disappear completely. Faye screaming at the end of the episode was another huge turning point. What makes that moment powerful is that it came from disappointment rather than hatred. Faye believed Rue lied to her. She believed the promise of escape was fake. And because she felt betrayed, she reacted emotionally without fully understanding what she was doing. But her scream likely sealed Rue's fate. Wayne waking up means Rue will probably be accused of betrayal, theft, or both. That final sequence created this horrible feeling that Rue is now trapped from every direction possible. Laurie's side may want her dead. Alamo may suspect she's an informant. And the DEA itself may not even be able to protect her if things spiral out of control. That's why this episode feels so important for Rue's overall character arc. Earlier seasons focused on her addiction destroying her internally. But now her choices are creating external consequences that could physically destroy her life too. What makes Rue such an interesting protagonist is that she genuinely wants to become better. That's the heartbreaking part. She isn't evil. She isn't intentionally trying to ruin people's lives. But she keeps making reckless decisions while believing she can fix everything later. Episode 7 shows the moment where fixing things may no longer be possible. At the same time, the episode also quietly explored loneliness in a really effective way. Almost every major character feels emotionally isolated now. Cassie lost herself chasing attention. Maddie entered a dangerous world she doesn't belong in. Nate died completely alone underground. Rue keeps pushing away the people actually trying to help her. Even Lexi feels disconnected from everyone around her despite trying to stay normal. That's probably why this episode feels heavier than earlier ones in the season. It's no longer just about teenage chaos or emotional drama. Now the characters are facing adult consequences. Death, debt, betrayal, a criminal danger, psychological collapse. Episode 7 basically removed the illusion that these characters could continue making destructive choices forever without eventually paying the price. And with only one episode left, the biggest question now isn't whether things will get worse. It's whether any of these characters can actually survive the damage that's already been done. What really makes Episode 7 stand out from the rest of the season is how everything finally started connecting together. Earlier episodes sometimes felt chaotic on purpose, almost like the characters were drifting through different storylines without fully understanding where things were heading. But now we can finally see the bigger picture. Every lie, every betrayal, and every reckless decision slowly pushed these characters toward this exact disaster. And honestly, this episode may have completely changed the direction of Euphoria moving forward. Nate's death alone creates a massive emotional explosion for the finale. Whether people loved him or hated him, he was still one of the central forces holding the chaos of the show together. His actions affected almost everybody around him. Cassie built her entire emotional world around him. Maddie's current situation exists because of him. His family was already collapsing because of him. Even Rue's storyline indirectly connects back to the same dangerous world Nate became involved in. Removing him from the story changes the balance of everything. What made his death even more disturbing was how helpless it felt. Usually in shows like this, major deaths happen during fights, shootings, or dramatic confrontations. But Nate died trapped underground, unable to escape, unable to fight back, and slowly realizing nobody was coming to save him. The claustrophobic feeling during those scenes made them incredibly difficult to watch because the audience understood exactly what was happening before he did. Once the snake entered that pipe, there was basically no hope left. The sound design in those moments also played a huge role in creating fear. The silence around Nate, mixed with his breathing and panic, made the entire scene feel suffocating. Euphoria has always been visually stylish, but Episode 7 proved that sometimes simplicity creates the strongest emotional reaction. Watching somebody panic in complete darkness while realizing their life is ending is terrifying on a very human level. At the same time, Cassie's breakdown may become the emotional core of the finale. For most of this season, Cassie has been chasing identity through attention and validation. Social media followers, fame, online popularity, and public image became more important to her than reality itself. But Nate's death forced her to confront something she had been avoiding the entire season: the difference between attention and genuine love. That's why her reaction felt so raw. In that moment, she finally understood that all the things she sacrificed herself for didn't actually make her happy. And now the one person she emotionally attached herself to is gone forever. The tragedy is that she realized it too late. Euphoria constantly explores people recognizing truth only after destruction already happens, and Cassie became another example of that pattern. Maddie's future honestly feels just as tragic. The scene where Alamo explained the deal made it very clear that this wasn't temporary help. This was ownership. The percentage of future earnings means Maddie is now financially connected to someone extremely dangerous for potentially years. And the scariest part is that she may not even fully understand how impossible escaping that situation could become. What's interesting about Maddie's character is that she started the season feeling emotionally stronger than some of the others. Compared to Rue's addiction struggles or Cassie's emotional instability, Maddie looked more grounded. But episode 7 showed that even strong people can get dragged into situations beyond their control. One desperate decision changed her life completely. The relationship dynamics between the girls have also become incredibly toxic now. Cassie still emotionally clings to Maddie like they're close friends, but Maddie clearly sees things differently. There's resentment there, anger, manipulation. Yet underneath all of that, there's still history connecting them emotionally. That complicated friendship has become one of the strongest written parts of the season because it constantly shifts between love and hatred. Then there's Rue, who honestly feels closest to total collapse right now. The ending of the episode created this overwhelming feeling that every path ahead of her leads toward danger. If she stays connected to the DEA, criminals may kill her. If she leaves the DEA, she loses protection. If Lori believes she's disloyal, she's in danger. If Alamo believes she betrayed him, she's in danger too. Rue has basically trapped herself in a situation where trust no longer exists on any side. And the saddest part is that she had an escape route. Ollie represented that escape. Throughout the episode, he symbolized healing, forgiveness, and the possibility of starting over. Rue could have stayed there. She could have chosen safety instead of returning to chaos. But because Rue constantly believes she can solve problems herself, she walked right back into danger. That's what makes her character arc so tragic. She keeps getting opportunities to save herself, but emotionally, she still feels addicted to destruction. The episode also deserves credit for how mature the storytelling became compared to the beginning of the season. Earlier episodes focused heavily on online fame, relationships, parties, and emotional drama. But now the story feels much darker and more layered. It's talking about identity, exploitation, power, manipulation, trauma, and the consequences of trying to escape pain through unhealthy choices. Even side characters like Lexi quietly contributed to the tension. She probably had no idea that repeating Rue's DEA comment could become dangerous, but that's exactly how Euphoria writes its conflicts. Small moments create massive consequences later. Nobody in this world fully understands how connected everything really is until it's already too late. Overall, episode 7 was easily the strongest episode of the season because it finally delivered emotional payoff, shocking consequences, and real tension all at once. It balanced psychological drama with suspense in a way that made every storyline feel important. And unlike earlier episodes that sometimes felt slow, this one constantly pushed the story forward while still giving emotional depth to the characters. Now the finale has enormous pressure because the stakes are higher than they've ever been before. Rue's life is hanging by a thread, Cassie is emotionally shattered, Maddie is trapped in a dangerous deal, and Nate's death has left behind a massive emotional wound that will affect everyone differently. The biggest question now is whether Euphoria will end this season with redemption or complete tragedy.